Hello again everybody, and another episode in my talks on Homer. This one specifically from the Odyssey, and it's mostly about some events in Odyssey book 14. Yesterday I talked about Odysseus and whether he was a hero to do with the Cyclops story, and he didn't come out of that all that well. Today I want to talk about somebody who really is my favourite character in the whole of the Odyssey. And he is not someone that the Greeks would have considered a hero at all. He doesn't come from the right social class, he doesn't fight, there's going to be no songs sung after him for the heroic death that he will die. He won't have kleos, that rather hard to define quality. But he is loyal, he is brave, and he respects the tradition of welcoming the stranger of Xenia. Now in Odyssey book 14, when Odysseus has returned to the island of Ithaca, his home island, he makes his way inland, and the first person that he encounters, first person because he's met Athene disguised as somebody, the first person really that he encounters is Eumaeus. Now he is pretty low on the social scale. He is the pigman. He's lives outside the city with nobody else, and he basically looks after pigs. So he despises the suitors of Penelope, Odysseus' wife, and that becomes clear in his first words to Odysseus. "Here I sit," he says, "yearning and mourning for the best of masters, and fattening his hogs for others to eat, while he himself, starving as like as not, is lost in foreign lands and tramping through strange towns, if indeed he's still alive at all and can see the light of day. However, follow me, sir, to my cabin to join me in my meal. When you've had all the bread and wine you want, you shall tell me where you come from and what your troubles are." And you'll notice that's very different from the whole breaking of Xenia stuff that happened with the Cyclops. The friendly herdsman led his way to his cabin, ushered Odysseus in, and bade him be seated on some brushwood that he piled up for him and covered with the shaggy skin of a wild goat, large and thick enough to serve as his own mattress. Odysseus was delighted by this welcome and didn't hide his pleasure. "My good host," said Odysseus, "I hope Zeus and the other gods will reward you with your heart's desire for receiving me so kindly." Homer, by the way, is a master of dramatic irony. "Sir," said the swineherd Eumaeus, "my conscience wouldn't let me turn away a stranger in a worse state even than yourself. For strangers and beggars all come in Zeus's name, and a gift from folk like us is none the less welcome for being small. Serfs, after all, can do no better, so long as they go in fear of their lords and masters. I mean these new ones. For as for my old master, the gods have fixed it so he shan't get home. He would have looked after me properly, and pensioned me off with a cottage and a bit of land and an attractive wife, as a kind master does for a servant who's worked hard for him, and whose work heaven has prospered as it prospers the job I toil at here. Yes, the king would have rewarded me well for this, had he grown old in Ithaca, but he is dead and gone." So poor old Eumaeus, the swineherd, thinks that Odysseus is dead, and he doesn't realise at all that he is in fact talking to Odysseus. And this use of dramatic irony enables Homer to portray Eumaeus really as a man without side. He's a man without cunning. He's just a decent guy. So when he's eaten and drunk, Odysseus is then asked who he is and what his story is, where he comes from. He then gives a long and complicated and fundamentally dishonest answer, not wanting to reveal yet who he really is. He needs to find out who he can rely on, and he needs to plan for a showdown, so he doesn't want to reveal any of that just yet because it'll put him in a weak position. So I suppose there's some justification. But he is nonetheless dishonest in the face of Eumaeus's honesty. Eumaeus, whether he believes him or not, then takes him in and makes generous provision for Odysseus overnight. And this is how that goes. So this comes from the last bit of Odyssey book 14, and this is what it says. "Old man," said the swineherd Eumaeus to Odysseus, "that's an excellent story you've told us. Every word went home, and you shall have your reward. Tonight you shan't want for clothing or anything else that an unfortunate outcast has the right to expect from those he approaches. But in the morning you'll have to knock about in your own rags once more. We have no stock of cloaks here, nor extra tunics to put on. Each man has to manage with a single cloak. But when Odysseus' son arrives, you can count on him to give you a cloak and tunic to wear, and to send you wherever you've set your heart on going." The swineherd sprang up, placed a bed for him by the fire, and spread on it the skin of sheep and goats. Odysseus lay down, and Eumaeus covered him with a great thick mantle, which he laid by to change into when an exceptionally cold spell came on. So there Odysseus slept, with the young farmhands beside him. But the swineherd was not content to sleep there and desert his boars. On the contrary, he got himself ready for a night outside, and Odysseus was delighted to see how careful a steward he was of his absent master's property. He began by slinging a sharp sword from his sturdy shoulders. He then wrapped himself in a good thick cloak to keep out the wind, picked up the fleece of a big full-grown goat, and finally took a sharp javelin with which to ward off dogs and men. And so he went off to pass the night where the white-tusked porkers slept, under an overhanging rock, sheltered from the northerly winds. So, the noble swineherd Eumaeus. Now compared with the reckless, philandering, boastful Odysseus, who could not but admire the quiet but heroic dignity of Eumaeus the swineherd? And for me, in many ways, Eumaeus it is who's the real hero of the Odyssey.